so many of you here today. Why don't you turn to your neighbor and say, you're looking good? Turn to another neighbor and say, I'm glad to be standing next to you. All right, join me in clapping, putting your hands together and just clapping. We're going to take some time to just sing songs about God and God's love. So feel relaxed and just groove with me, come on. We sing, you can have my yes. You can have my yes with no exception. I'm giving you my rights to second guessing. You can have my yes. I'm giving you my fear of never knowing whatever's coming next. I know you got me. You can have my yes. You're the lamp, you're the lamp, you're the light, you're the cloud that guides me. You're the way, you're the truth, you're the life inside me. You conquered my fears, so I leave it all behind. I'm running to the light. I'm giving you my dreams. I'm giving you my dreams and my ambition. Your presence is my prize and my provision. I'll answer when you ask. For who can come against if you are for me? 'Cause even in the fire, I know you got me. Giving you my yes again. You're the lamp, you're the light, you're the cloud that guides me. Oh, oh, oh. You're the way, you're the truth, you're the life inside me. You conquered my fear, so I leave it all behind. I'm running to the light. I want you to join me in lifting up your hands as we sing. Oh, wherever you wanna go, I'll follow you. Wherever you wanna go, I'll follow you. Oh, wherever you wanna go, I'll follow you. I'll follow you. You sing it out now. Oh, wherever you wanna go, I'll follow you. Wherever you wanna go, I'll follow you. Oh, wherever you wanna go, I'll follow you. I'll follow you. Yeah. You're the lamp, you're the light, you're the cloud that guides me. Oh, oh, oh. You're the way, you're the truth, you're the life inside me. You conquered my fear, so I leave it all behind. We're running to the light. Can I hear everyone just cheer this way? Woo! We're running to the light. Woo! I just love your energy. Let's keep it up and let's just move along. This song is about making a difference. With open eyes, I'm walking to the light. 'Cause I've been sleeping way too long. This blurry vision had me living blind. Show me what's really going on. The world is in need right now. It's time to let love be loud. Gotta be what we preach about. 'Cause we can make a difference. Woo! We can do our talking with our hands and feet. Love is on a mission. Let the difference start with you and me. guys praise and praise so well. And now we're going to enter into a time of worship. So I want to invite you to join me in raising your hands, just closing your eyes right now. So worship is all about connecting with God. And sometimes right now even we just need to reflect on the lyrics, because it just shows us and teaches us about who God is in our lives. Before I open my arms, you open up yours. Before
Wow, it's so good to worship and experience God's presence. Thanks TiVo Band for recording that for us.
I'm Christine.
And I'm Clement, and we want to welcome you to TiVo Online. If you are new, so great to have you, and we hope you are feeling at home with us. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe and turn on your notification for YouTube. The Evolution has been dropping some amazing content lately, so you want to make sure you don't miss a single online gathering or video release. You'll be getting weekly messages from our pastor and leadership team. You can also watch awesome stuff like our Into the Grey panels on social justice. Not just that, our brand new life, culture and leadership podcast, Uncommon Humanity, which is out now on Spotify and Apple. So Christine.
Yes, Clement.
You know, I'm Uncommon Humanity's biggest fan.
I can see that.
Yeah, and I totally love what Pastor Charmaine and Carrie's talk about in each episode. It's just so awesome and makes me look at my life and the world around me with fresh eyes.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Right?
We have such great feedback from many of our friends of The Evolution,
Yeah.
many of whom are members or Christians, so I'm pretty sure you guys are going to love it too.
Yes.
So keep up with us on Instagram, yes, all the latest happenings and all the latest drops of content we are creating.
Yeah.
And if you're already a fan like Clement and want to participate in blessing someone else, help keep us going with our generosity.
Yeah.
You can head over to theevolution.org/give for different giving options, or simply scan the QR code below to give via PayNow.
Yes. Here at TiVo, we always give to God first, as our gratitude, love, and worship. But we also give for the sake of our team and hard work that goes into building our community. Your giving helps us to dream up, produce, and create a future. So thank you for being generous.
And now, time to get a note-taking app out.
Sit on the edge of your seat because your heart is going to be so blessed.
And here is today's message.
My message for today is the being of happiness. Okay, the being of thank you very much. That's exactly what I wanted, okay? Now, some of you are familiar with this line that I am canceling out or deconstructing, changing up. Okay, and it comes from Thomas Jefferson. His line goes, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it's a line that's enshrined in America's Declaration of Independence. So that's where you probably heard it from, okay? But really, this line, the pursuit of happiness, has become what I believe to be the zeitgeist of our contemporary generation. You know, our generation's culture really is a culture of the pursuit of happiness. It's a culture of more. It's a culture of accumulation, acquisition, consumption, consumerism. You know, for us, you and me, young people, were young, okay, happiness is something that is never here. It's always something that's around the corner. Something we achieve when we attain success, recognition, or hit our goals, or find something fun to do. You know, however happy you feel right now in this moment, you know what? You can always feel happier tomorrow. And however happy you have right now, whatever you have, however happy that makes you, you will always be happier once you possess something else that you don't have. Now, by the way, my misspell of happiness in the title is deliberate, in case you were wondering, because I'm actually quoting a misspell made by Lemuel Haynes in 1776. Now, who is Lemuel Haynes? He was a biracial man who quoted Thomas Jefferson in an essay he wrote to argue about the illegality of slave-keeping in America. So, Easter egg for you to do some reading up, okay? To make you think about how often, you know, one person's or one group's privileged pursuit of happiness can actually turn into another person or another group's oppression. And to make you think today about how maybe the pursuit of happiness, while it sounds cool, doesn't always lead you to life and liberty. And sometimes, in fact, it can even become someone else's slavery as well as your own. You know, Martin Luther King is famous for saying this, that that the whites who were oppressing the blacks in America were as oppressed because they had an internal slavery in their spirit. And that's how I want to wrap up today, this long series that we've had on Sermon on the Mount. Now, don't worry, this is not going to be a heavy-going justice sermon. Is that okay? It's really going to be about your personal life. That's something to think about, okay? So if you've been with us for these many, many months, we've actually by now gone through every single bit of Jesus' famous teaching. Now, of course, we haven't drawn out every ounce of wisdom there is. You know, there's so much more that we could teach about Jesus' message. But we have covered every passage in Sermon on the Mount. Every passage except the very first, which is how we are going to wrap today by going back to the beginning, to the prologue, to the piece that frames all that we've learned so far. Okay, Matthew 5, 1 to 12. Now, when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up a mountain, he sat down, and his disciples came to him. He taught them, saying, "Happy are people who are hopeless, because the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Happy are people who grieve, because they will be made glad. Happy are people who are humble, because they will inherit the earth. Happy are people who are hungry and thirsty for righteousness, because they will be fed until they are full. Happy are people who show mercy, because they will receive mercy. Happy are people with pure hearts, because they will see God. Happy are people who make peace, because they will be called God's children. Happy are people whose lives are harassed, because they are righteous, because the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Happy are you who, when people insult and harass you and speak all kinds of bad and false things about you all because of me. Be full of joy and be glad, because you have a great reward in heaven." Now listen, I want to start by saying this. Don't ever tell me that God doesn't want us to be happy. That following Jesus is all about us giving up things and living with too many constraints as Christians, because right here, right at the very start of Jesus' most famous message, you know, at the start of all our talking about the law of love, all the talking about living by higher standards in this world, you know what? Is this prologue where God says, happy. You know, traditionally, this teaching in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount is known as the Beattitudes. So you look at certain translations, it's called the Beattitudes. Now, why is it called the Beatitudes? Well, it's a term given by the Catholics, and the word comes from the Latin word beatitudo, which means blessedness. It's just a nice play, don't you think? In English, it's like the be attitude of life. But actually, what it came from was really this concept of blessedness in Latin. Because the Greek word that's translated in our common English Bible today as happy can also be translated as blessed. Well, more accurately, the definition of the word is something more like to be deeply and supremely happy and blessed. So just to give you a better sense, right, of what Jesus is saying to us here in this prologue, which I think sometimes gets lost when we're just browsing through this passage without understanding it. And let's be real, this is one of those passages that's kind of hard to understand. It seems very philosophical, very theoretical, very high-minded, you know, and ethereal. And it's like, okay, yeah, blessed are those who are hungry or thirsty for righteousness, yeah, right? So let me read to you how I might look at it now today, understanding this. It goes, deeply happy are people who are hopeless, because the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Supremely happy are people who grieve, because they will be made glad by God. Deeply blessed are people who are humble, and later I'll tell you what this word actually means, because they will inherit the earth. Supremely blessed are people who are hungry and thirsty for righteousness, which here actually means righteousness and justice, because they will be fed until they are full. Deeply and supremely happy are people who show mercy, because they will receive mercy. Deeply and supremely blessed are people who have pure hearts, because they will see God. Deeply happy are people who make peace, because they will be called God's children. Deeply blessed are people whose lives are harassed. Blessed. because they are harassed. Are you hearing me? Because they are righteous, because the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Supremely happy are you when people insult you and harass you and speak all kinds of bad and false things about you, all because of Jesus. Not because of a lack of EQ. Be full of joy and be glad, because you will have great reward in heaven. I think you get what I'm saying, right? You see, God does care that we are blessed and happy. I will say, though, Jesus' idea of happy is completely different from what society and our upbringing and our culture has defined for us. You know, we've been told happiness comes from success. Happiness is found when we acquire things and stuff at some point in our future. Happiness is when someone likes our social media or gives us recognition at work and school, celebrates us. You know, at every stage and turn of our lives, we've been indoctrinated, brainwashed to believe happiness is something we've got to pursue. We got to fight for it, earn it, obtain it before we can experience what it's like to be joyful. But what you will find here is that Jesus teaches something completely different. Happiness is not a pursuit. Happiness is not something you can attain. It's actually, according to Jesus, a state of being that we have right here, right now. Even if our situation is chaotic, even if our situation is oppressive, even if we haven't achieved whatever we are dreaming for our future. You know, I'm always really astounded how the teachings and philosophy of Jesus and the Bible consistently captures what modern day research is becoming, starting to uncover. And in this case, what lines up in the Beattitudes is that in research today, most sociologists, neuroscientists, psychologists will tell you that pursuing happiness doesn't actually lead to happiness. It actually leads to more anxiety and unhappiness. In fact, one researcher that I know of, Dr. Emily Afeshani-Smith, who is the editor of Stanford University's Hoover Institution and the author of the book, The Power of Meaning, she found that people who live to pursue happiness are actually way less happy than people who simply live from a place of meaning and purpose about our lives. And people who find a way to be happy in their right here and now, she found that they were actually the ones who turned out to be more resilient than the pursuers and perform better at work and in school. So listen, I know it's a hard time for everyone right now, especially as youth and young adults, because this is the time of our lives where we're supposed to be doing things, achieving things, pursuing goals. It feels like COVID has disrupted a lot, not all, but a lot of that stage of life. But here's the truth. If you don't learn to be happy without the future, you won't be happy even when you reach your future. Because just like the future starts now, with what you do with your life right now, happiness also starts now. So what does Jesus' Beatitudes have to teach us? Well, first and foremost, number one, being happy according to Jesus actually begins with grace. So what's really interesting about the Beatitudes is that majority of the passage is what scholars actually say is written in divine passive voice. So just to throw an academic term for you, all right? Divine passive voice, which basically means when you look at the language behind the passage, majority of these Beatitudes that Jesus rattles off for us, 9 altogether, the qualities that he espouses and the rewards we get from living with those qualities. What it means to be in divine passive voice is that Jesus is saying these qualities are not dependent on us, human beings. And in fact, we, for the most part, are passive players when it comes to God's Beatitudes. Wait, what? Let me repeat. We are passive players in our own happiness and blessedness. For the large part. Not all of it, but for a large part. You see, what is mind-blowing about this beginning prologue of Sermon on the Mount is it sets the tone for the rest of the teaching that all we need in life, all we need to become, all that we need to live with, the value system God has for us, the standards He asks of us, it actually does not depend on us. It starts with grace from God. It comes, for the most part, divinely from God Himself. So it will be God who intervenes, who helps, and makes it possible for us to live happy and blessed and righteous in a world that makes life so challenging and so hard. I mean, just look at the first four alone, right? And just look at it at face value, okay? Happy are people who are hopeless. Happy are people who grieve. Happy are people who are humble. Happy are people who are hungry and thirsty for righteousness. You know, in the first four Beatitudes, being happy and blessed has nothing to do with our circumstances or our human effort. It says you can be hopeless, and actually the more accurate translation of this would be the person is literally both literally poor and poor in spirit. But God will make you happy because the kingdom already belongs to you. You can be grieving, sad, broken-hearted, but God, not yourself, will make you glad. You can be humble, and here's the thing, the word humble here isn't talking about choosing to be a humble person, like what we talk about in ministry training, open, vulnerable, willing to learn. No, the humility that's talked about here is actually more about being oppressed by someone else. It is a forced humility. So what the third beatitude is saying is you can be oppressed by your circumstances and people around you, but God will give you the earth as your inheritance. And the next one, happy are you if you are hungry and thirsty for righteousness. This is not talking about most Christians go, oh, I'm hungry to be pure before God, to never look at pornography ever again. It's not talking about that. Righteousness here is talking about justice in the world. And again, it's not talking about you being righteous or pure as a Christian or you enacting justice. It's talking about if you have had injustice done to you and you are waiting and longing for someone to right the wrong, God will feed you until you are full. So in these four, very explicitly, God is the divine giver. And we are the passive recipients of His love and His grace. You know, I've found we Christians often live by two patterns that are actually completely un-Christian. The first is actually a secular pattern type of Christianity. Where we teach, where we pattern in our culture in church is, our happiness in life is determined by our position and our situation. So things have to be going well for us. God has to answer our prayer about work, about school, about relationships, about life before we consider ourselves blessed by God. We have to have things, and God must be prospering us, then we are happy. That's actually not Jesus. It is God says asking you to receive, and it brings God great glory and joy to answer our prayers. But it's not exactly. It's actually more like the world, but we slap Jesus on it. Now, the second type or pattern of Christianity I tend to find is a Christianity that is religious. So it seems more Christian, but it's actually still not 100% Jesus. We have to feel like we are righteous, that we are pure, and we are perfect, and we're living according to certain rules before we accept ourselves, and before we feel like we are acceptable to God. And you know what's funny about these two patterns? They are actually mere shadows of the real happiness and blessedness that Jesus is talking about here. Now, is there truth in both of that? Again, yes. Does God answer our prayers by providing? Yes. Does God call us to live by righteousness? Yes. But arguably, our righteousness, or typical traditional Christian righteousness, is more about our version of purity than God's version of justice. Because for God, justice and righteousness are together. So they contain truth, but they are shadows of the real thing. You know, Jesus spends the whole of SOTM talking to us about the law of love. But he begins by speaking about grace. That whether it's struggling to stop living by society's secular expectations of success, or trying to live up to God's standards of justice, our journey begins with grace. And in fact, it's so dependent on grace that you could be a human being who is at rock bottom, hopeless, grieving, broken, no ability to stand on your own, disadvantaged, oppressed even, like there's a real tide coming against you. And yet there's a God, a higher being who has decided to love us and make themselves, Father God, Holy Spirit, Son, Holy Spirit, divinely responsible for your happiness, blessedness, and justice. Just think about what that means for a moment, right? Because let's be real here, majority of us, we're Singaporeans, so we're privileged enough. Most of us here will never truly understand what it means to be at rock bottom. But if we ever hit rock bottom, God has made providence for the entire spectrum of brokenness. There is grace. And if there are a few of us here that you feel like you are the end of your rope, we're going into our third year now. Listen, you don't need to reach a better future for yourself before you receive God's grace to be happy. You know, one of my fondest memories of the beginning of the evolution will always be the Makan House program that we ran years and years ago. You know, because when I look back, that was a time of my life where I was literally the poorest and internally the lowest of my life. I had no money, we had no money, and because of that, there were days I would feel so bad about myself and about our community. Not all the time, you know, because sometimes it's romantic, like, wow, we are heroes, right, in some sort of destitute mission field. But there were days I would feel so bad about myself and about our community, and we had to fight discouragement and depression. And sometimes when I felt it couldn't get any worse, someone would come along, some well-meaning Christian, and they would tell us what you are doing is not being realistic. You know, in fact, I remember one of them told me, you know, sure, Jesus says give up everything to follow him. He told the rich young ruler, sell your possessions and give to the poor. But we can't really do that. We can't really do Jesus. You know, let me say this. There was always God's presence and God's encouragement whenever we prayed. There were also amazing miracles that happened for us, as you've heard over the weeks. You know, there were also amazing mentors that believed in me and weren't like those well-meaning Christians who kept on encouraging me. But you know what it's like when you are feeling hopeless, you know what I mean? When you are struggling literally and internally, encouragement for people holds you up like a thread. And discouragement from people hits you like a hammer. And yet I can tell you that season, still today, was the happiest and most blessed times of my life. Yes, later we moved into Jalan Pemimpin, and yes, later we moved here. We gained more stability, comfort, and recognition, acknowledgement over the years that, hey, we did the right thing. We know what we're doing with church. But none of this has ever made me as happy. In fact, it's a very short-lived happiness as compared to when we were living by God's grace, making a difference and inheriting the earth even with so little. And as I reflected these past few months since our anniversary, that is the state of grace I would like to return to in my being. You know, I don't necessarily have to give up all that I have achieved. I don't need to throw away my sneakers or my Jordan jumper. But I would like to return back to that state of being that state of happiness. The kind that comes from reliance on God, from experiencing His grace, not from my own human effort and achievements. True happiness starts with that. Real, lasting, deep joy begins with God. Which brings me to my next point, number 2. Being happy is in the here and now, not the future. You know, the interesting thing about the entire Beattitudes, which you can read in the English pretty easily, is it's written in present tense. This means happiness is not a state you will find somewhere in your future when the world is what you want it to be. Happiness is found right here, right now. So listen, friend, your happiness is not going to happen once things are how you want your life to be. Happiness is a state you need to receive from God into your soul now. So let me tell you something I learned recently about happiness that blew my mind, okay? So did you know that our brain has 2 ways of feeling good? Now, I'm going to put this to you in layman's terms, okay? So when you need to Google, maybe if you're not sure what terms to Google in, just come and ask me, all right? Because I'm going to put it to you in layman's terms. So we have 2 pathways in our brain to feeling good. One is what I call the more pathway. And the other is what is called, now this one you can Google, it's called the here and now pathway in our brain. Now, let's start with the more pathway. The more pathway in our brain is run by one chemical and one chemical alone. And that chemical is called dopamine. Now, dopamine has gone by quite a few nicknames. Some of them would be the reward chemical. Some of you will know it as the falling in love chemical. Scientists used to call it 50 years ago the molecule of pleasure. Now, dopamine is really useful, okay? God created it, right? He made that pathway in our brain. It's very useful in that it helps human beings to achieve. So when someone first asks you, often when you are a youth, and in our church someone will always ask you, what is your passion? Usually what we are really asking when we ask that question is, what triggers dopamine in your brain? What gets you excited? What makes you feel a burst of energy? What makes you enthusiastic to get out of bed? What gives you desire, drive, and motivation? Because dopamine can be one of the indicators. Not the only indicator, and certainly only a starter indicator, okay? But a starting indicator to tell us where your true passions and gifts might lie. You see, dopamine is also what triggers our brains to dream of and fight for a better future. It's the chemical responsible for scientific discovery, world change, and idealism. So dopamine can be great when we harness it well. The only problem with dopamine is if we are not careful, it can also destroy us. Because dopamine is addictive. It's what causes you to be addicted to social media. And why some of you right now are shaking just coming off your social media. It's what causes you to be addicted to gaming. It's what causes you to be addicted to shopping. Every time you buy something new, your brain gets a shot of dopamine on the pathway of more. The only problem is dopamine doesn't last. So you keep needing to get a new shot of dopamine in order to keep feeling good. Ooh. So you see, 50 years ago, like what I said to you, scientists called dopamine the molecule of pleasure because that's what they thought it was. But more recently, they have reclassified it as the molecule of novelty, not the molecule of pleasure. It is what is given off, for example, let me explain it to you. For example, when you think you have $20 in your wallet, but then you open it and discover you got 40. The dopamine you get, the pleasure you get, is actually not from 40, it's from the difference. So in order for you to keep feeling good, it's not doing the same thing over and over again. It's like a drug. You have to keep increasing the dosage and the novelty to feel the same kind of good. So what is becoming scary nowadays, scientists say, is that as generations get younger, thanks to social media, we are actually conditioning our brains to be addicted to finding dopamine. But the problem is, the happy that dopamine gives never lasts. The happy that dopamine gives depends on novelty. And so we keep pursuing one new thing after another new thing, and our souls never find rest. Okay, the other pathway is what scientists call the here and now pathway. And that pathway is very different. It's run by a team of 4 different chemicals. Serotonin, I really hate pronouncing it, endocannabinoids, oxytocin, and endorphin. So you know 3 of them, right? Serotonin is what controls your mood and keeps you from feeling anxious. Endocannabinoids are the happiness and delight chemicals. Oxytocin is the chemical responsible for warmth and bonding. It's what you felt when just now I asked you to hug your friend. It comes from affectionate touch. People think it's only sex. No, it's also affectionate touch. Okay? So when you have the feeling of falling in love, guess what? That's dopamine. And on average, human beings will keep feeling the effects of dopamine only up to, they found, 6 to 9 months in a relationship. And that's usually when people fall out of love if they haven't bonded over real things. Unless there's a switch to oxytocin, your relationship is doomed. Okay, the last one is endorphins, and these are the true pleasure chemicals that control your contentment and feeling of satisfaction with life. So in order to be truly happy, you can't live by dopamine alone. You need these other 4 chemicals. In order to be truly happy, you can't live by the pathway of more alone, which is the pursuit of happiness. We need to be able to live in the here and now, in the being of happiness. So learning to be happy and content, young person, it is for your now, not for your later. You know, it's interesting, right? In this world, we celebrate 2 kinds of people, usually. The first kind is the artists, explorers, scientists, athletes who break boundaries, right? We also celebrate the A-type personalities who become incredibly successful and rich. But do you know that dopamine addiction in the brain is correlated to the people who fall into these 2 groups? You know, that is why artists have the highest rates of depression and suicide. And that is why successful people can buy their huge beach houses and planes and whatever else and yet never be able to enjoy them. Because they're always going, what's the next thing, what's the next thing, what's the next thing? That's why they need to shoot, rockets to the moon, into the stratosphere in the middle of COVID, instead of giving away your money to love people. So let me tell you a story about this guy named Buzz Aldrin. I'm not sure if you know who he is, but Buzz Aldrin was the pilot of the Apollo 11 and the second man to ever walk on the moon after his teammate Neil Armstrong. Now, do you know when he returned from that historic mission and was asked by reporters what he was feeling when he stepped on the moon? He replied, "We don't know what we were feeling. Walking on the moon is just what we do. Now we need to go after what's next." What could be more amazing than being the second man to walk on the moon? Now, don't get me wrong. Of course, there are greater frontiers to explore. But what some neuroscientists and psychologists now believe is that Buzz Aldrin was a man whose brain was so addicted to dopamine that he couldn't stop to enjoy the moment. In fact, after that mission, Buzz Aldrin became a raging alcoholic because alcohol actually triggers dopamine in the brain. He married and divorced 2 women pretty quickly in succession, and eventually things got so bad for him, he was hospitalized in a psychiatric unit for a breakdown. You see, that is what happens when we cannot be happy. Now, you might be sitting here today, well, PC, I don't think that's me yet. My dream isn't to walk on the moon. So I don't know how to relate to what you're saying right now. But actually you do. Because it's the same feeling you get when you get a new job or promoted at work. At first you feel excited for a minute, and then you feel anxiety, and then you feel like it's not enough again. It's the same feeling you get when you buy a pair of new sneakers. You feel good for a moment, then suddenly it's not as good as you thought it would feel, and then suddenly you feel a void in your soul and you need another pair, but a better pair, in order to feel the same level of excitement. Relatable? It's what you feel when you do well at school. It's good to do well at school. You feel good about yourself. You feel confident for a minute. But then the feeling never lasts as long as you thought it would, and the anxiety starts back up. Because that is the pathway to more, but it's not the pathway to the being of happiness. So friends, listen to me, there's nothing wrong with the pathway of more. God put that pathway of desire, of hunger and thirst in your brain to help you to achieve. But more than that, and more than that, He put it there so that you could achieve a better world, so that you could be a part of bringing heaven on earth, so that you could be a part of bringing God's kingdom into this world. I mean, that's the whole reason why we build the evolution, the pathway of more. There is something better that we can have in this world than the state that it is in. But can I tell you this, even when it comes to God's call over our life, even when it's an altruistic call to build a better community, it cannot be the only pathway we run with in life. It's equally important, but maybe not as important as trying to be happy in the here and the now. So that our joy in life isn't determined by our achievements. So that when we arrive into our future, we are as happy when we are 50 as we are when we are 1,000. And we can actually sit in it and enjoy it instead of chasing the next thing and being anxious about the next thing. See, being happy is in the here and now, not the future. Which brings me again to my next point, number 3. Being happy isn't found in external validation, but an internal acceptance. You see, the last part of the Beattitudes is pretty interesting. It says, happy are people whose lives are harassed. Happy are you when people insult you and harass you and speak all kinds of bad and false things about you. Now, I know Christians love to use these 2 Beatitudes and say how we are being persecuted for following Jesus, for standing up for the truth, for what's right in Jesus' way of life. You know what I have to say about that, so we're not going to go there today. Today, we're just going to speak metaphorically about how we feel about our authentic selves. Is that okay? So what happens is when we are too fixated on the future, on what we don't have and need to achieve, we end up basing how good we feel about ourselves on external validation instead of internal acceptance. And that is one of the ways our joy is stolen in this life. Our life and liberty and freedom is stolen from our spirit. Paul Scanlon recently said this in a mentoring group session that I was in. He said to us, he doesn't like the word self-esteem. And this is why, okay, he defines it this way. You see, self-esteem requires us to be good and have things in order to be confident. But self-acceptance, he said, is about valuing all that we are, even the mess and the flaws that we have. And he believes when we live by self-esteem, we will always live self-absorbed. And our confidence will always be shaking. But when we learn to be content and self-accepting of who we are right now and our circumstances right now, he says that's when real change can truly start to happen and we truly live free in our calling from God. You see, one of the really profound things to me about what Jesus is teaching us here is the fact that none of the people he describes in Matthew 5, 1-12 should be happy or feel blessed in any way. If we're measuring it according to our worldly perspectives and expectations. Right? As I said earlier, the first of all, Beattitudes, I mean, these people are in pain. Pain that is not of their own choosing. No one wants to be poor or feel hopeless. No one wants to be sad or grieving. That's not in our control. Nobody wants to be down and out or wronged by other people. And yet God says you can be happy even when you're pushed to the end of your rope. Even when life didn't turn out the way you hoped. In Beattitudes 5-7, God describes living a selfless life. So it's not fully just divine passive. There is also some action on our part. Right? He talks about in 5-7 being an agent of mercy, being pure-hearted, making a choice about that, being peacemaking in relationships. That's not living for yourself and making sure you succeed. That's making sure everyone else succeeds. Again, you're not really accumulating anything here, right? I'm sure you will in the process sometimes. But really, this is more about building other people up more than yourself. And yet, God says, happy. And then in the last two, Jesus goes on about being harassed and insulted, which I assume is for being a peacemaker, because he says, insulted for following me. Being a peacemaker, a creator of justice, a person who shows mercy to others, even if you haven't been shown mercy. Listen, nothing about this description screams happiness. Altruism, maybe. Service and sacrifice to others, maybe, but none of it actually describes any sort of external blessings or success or validation. And yet, God says, happy, blessed. You see, God calls each of us to live a deeper kind of confidence. Not one that comes from external proof, but a confidence that comes from within. From knowing that we are God's child. From knowing that we are great as we are. And I think the Message Bible really brings this across really well. Again, Eugene Peterson, he's like just a genius when it comes to the Bible and contemporary life. He says, you're blessed when you're at the end of your rope. With less of you, there is more of God and His rule. You're blessed when you feel lost. You've lost what is most dear to you. Only then can you be embraced by the one who is most dear to you. You're blessed when you're content with just who you are, no more, no less. That's the moment you find yourselves proud owners of everything that can't be bought. You're blessed when you worked up a good appetite for God, His food and drink, the best meal you'll ever eat. You're blessed when you care. At the moment of being careful, you find yourself cared for. You're blessed when you get your inside world, your mind and your heart put right, then you can see God in the outside world. You're blessed when you can show people how to cooperate instead of compete or fight. That's when you discover who you really are and your place in God's family. Did Simon Sinek just plagiarize the Beattitudes? What would it feel like if all of us here could fully 100% accept Jesus' words that He just said about you right here and right now? What would it be like to live understanding what grace means? What would life feel like if we didn't care about comparing and competing and keeping up? Where being who we are, being kind, caring, good people was truly just at the core of our being and our values, and it is enough. I mean, are any of these things that Jesus is teaching going to change you going to school or to work to earn money and make a living to achieve things? No. You still got dopamine in your brain. But I think if you do it from a place of self-acceptance, of internal acceptance, you will actually enjoy your journey instead of being anxious about it. And all the energy that you spend fritzing and emoing in your bed at night can go into actually achieving something. And I'm just imagining here, if you had that kind of self-assurance and energy in life, what kind of change would you actually be able to make in the world around you? Because you have a true, unshakable life and liberty within. You see, this is Joshua Milburn and Ryan Nicodemus. Some of you may know them as the Minimalists. They have a hit show on Netflix as well as books and a podcast. Now, I don't think I need to explain to you their deal. The name is self-explanatory, right? They advocate living a happier, more meaningful life through having less things. In fact, Joshua Milburn is famous for this line, love people, use things. Now, before you misunderstand and think that minimalism is all about getting rid of material possessions altogether, listen, that's not it. Removing access for them is part of helping yourself to refocus your attention on what truly matters. But the point is actually not less, it's minimal. The point is making room, the point is actually more. The point is making room in our lives for more time, more peace, more creativity, more experiences, more service to others, more contentment, more freedom. By changing our attitude and way of living when it comes to happiness. You see, both Joshua and Ryan, by age 30, were actually really successful people. They had achieved everything that people told them was supposed to make them happy. 6-figure careers, luxury cars, oversized houses, all the stuff to fill those oversized houses. And yet they found that they weren't satisfied. And yet they found that they had this gaping void. And they found that, hey, working 80 hours a week just to buy more stuff wasn't going to make them happy. In fact, the more they made and the more they worked, the more anxiety, fear, loneliness, depression, and overwhelm they felt. So in 2009, they decided to take back control of their lives by following the principles of minimalism for 21 days, and they never went back. And now they've made a life and career from advocating for minimalism and devoting their lives to a lot of charity work. And their motto is to live your life loving people instead of loving things. Because that is how you achieve true happiness. When you do it the other way around, you become a slave instead of becoming free. You see, if all of us were just to pause for this moment, long enough to listen to our true voice within, we would know, hey, this makes sense. That is the path to true lasting satisfaction. I think just none of us pauses long enough and deep enough to hear it and follow through. And then the next moment from church, we go back to real life, 9 to 5, and the world tells us what is true happiness. You know, if we could just stay long enough to understand that it is the intangible stuff, not the tangible things, that gives us true meaning and purpose in the world, you know, that is when we will begin to live free and great lives. So listen, live in a way that you find internal acceptance, peace, and contentment. That is the way to life, not all the external validations. Finally, I want to say this. In the Beattitudes, number 4, Jesus teaches us a superior kind of happiness. So we've been talking quite a bit in messages and ministry training about the difference between hedonic and eudaimonic happiness, right? If you don't know, go ask a friend. I think anyone in church who's been here can explain that to you. We need both. Hedonic and eudaimonic happiness. But one is more important than the other. And that's been helpful, yes? But here's what I've been reflecting on lately, and that is how we define these two things. What creates hedonic happiness, the temporary burst of fun and joy in our life, and eudaimonic happiness is so dependent on what is our internal value system and perspective. I mean, come on. We all know one is better than the other, right? But our ability to even begin to choose eudaimonia is actually completely dependent on our values and perspectives. You see, why is it that Jesus says only a few verses later from the Beatitudes, he says, if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. You know, what did Regina say to you last week in her message? You can't serve God and money. One will always be your master and you will be a slave to the next. I mean, we know we're supposed to choose Jesus over money. Duh. We know living infinitely is better than being finite and comparing ourselves to other people. We know. But why is it so hard? You see, human beings can choose, but really what happens is our perspective ends up choosing for us. Our values, wherever they are at, will end up choosing for us. You see, like it or not, our perception always colors our happiness. If what we value is money, fame, popularity, recognition, then we will never be happy because these things are temporary, these things are external. If our values are not the same as Jesus, we can talk about love till kingdom come and justice and righteousness, but it is really hard to give up power and privilege. But what if we could adjust ourselves to value what God values? To not just know in our head, but to really feel about it the way He feels about it. To be able to see, I think that's the greatest challenge, right? Not to read the Beattitudes and know it in theory and philosophy, but to read it and to feel it and to mean it. Happy am I and blessed am I even at the end of my rope. Happy am I and so supremely blessed am I that I get to show mercy, make peace, and be pure of heart. Happy am I even if people insult me and laugh at me for giving away my things and possessions and living for something higher. It all goes back to our being. You see, the funny thing about the Christian life is so much of it is about being instead of pursuing. I know we always talk about Christianity, we got to be like Jesus, we got to fight to finish the race, we got to have it's a long game. We said that last week, right? But the funny thing is, this Christian life, yes, we got to do all those things, but majority of it, most of it, the large part of it is divine passive. You see, it's not just pursuing success according to the world that's problematic. Even the pursuit of being the perfect Christian is its own problem. It's exhausting. Human beings, we just simply cannot do it on our own. Now, does it mean we do nothing? Of course not, because right smack in the middle of the Beatitudes are the 3 out of the 9 that are for us to do. Happy are people who show mercy. That is a verb. Happy are people who have pure hearts. That is an action. Happy are people who make peace. That is a verb. We have to show mercy, have pure hearts, and make peace. We are involved in the divine process. 3 out of 9. But 6 out of 9 are about God helping us. The past couple of weeks, we've challenged you, inspired you, taught you, talked to you about a Sermon on the Mount that is about a higher kind of life and a higher kind of love. But here's what I am fully aware of right now, right in this moment. Maybe it's because we're going to probably go into a 3rd year of COVID. Human beings have so little control over our lives. None of us can be perfect like our Father in heaven is perfect without grace. You see, Jesus isn't just teaching a superior kind of happiness in the sense of choose eudaimonic over hedonic and then choose to stay committed to a bigger life versus the moments of fun. No, He created both. No, Jesus' happiness is superior not because of the choice, but because it comes from grace. Not from us, not from our own human effort, but through divine help. You see, all of the Sermon on the Mount begins with us finding ourselves in God's grace. You see, what's also really interesting nowadays in the last couple of years is that many researchers, 2 of them included are Dr. Emily Estrafani-Smith and Brené Brown. They have found, this is weird, happiness is tied to a belief in a higher power or higher being that is good and loves us. Now, whether they call that Jesus, whether they call that God, because Emily and Shafani Smith is not a Christian. But she believes that there is a greater good and a bigger thing out there in the universe that she's a part of and that is working towards something good. You see, what they found in their research is human beings cannot be happy from their own human effort and achievements. They cannot be fully happy without reliance on someone else, on something else, on a bigger something out there. So, we're young people, youth, we always have this fallacy and this shadow thing in our minds. It's all about us. We work hard and we will achieve. We build church hard and we will get a reward from God. We work hard in the world and we can give glory to God. We can show our friends that Jesus works in real life. Jesus is relevant, right? But that's actually not happiness. That's the secular that we have tagged as happiness. Actually, I guess, social media influencers aren't that far off when they go #blessed, right? Because actually they're talking about the Beattitudes. But they got it wrong. So friend, I want to say to you today, this season, find a way to be truly happy by being. Don't chase after shadow things and shadow callings and shadow joy and shadow accomplishments and shadow, whatever stuff it is, because they're really poor. The pursuit of happiness is a poor shadow of the real thing. Be happy.